You spent decades taking care of everyone else. Maybe you raised children. Maybe you built a career. Maybe you did both, often at the same time, and often without a break. You showed up, you gave, you held things together when no one else could. But now, the house is quieter, the phone rings less often, and the pace has slowed. Maybe for the first time in years, you find yourself asking, what now? Who am I when I'm not needed in the same way? That question is not the end of your story. It is the beginning of a new chapter, one that no one prepared us for, but one that holds its own kind of beauty. This video is not about fixing what is broken or trying to be who you were 20 years ago. It is about learning to live fully, not by adding more to your life, but by finally making space for what matters most. If you are a woman in your 60s, 70s, or beyond, this space is for you. This is not about aging gracefully just for appearances. This is about aging truthfully, gently, and with deep purpose. So if you are ready to come home to yourself, to live from the inside out, and to find strength in your softness, stay with me. Because sometimes the most meaningful part of the journey begins after the world has gone quiet. And that is when you finally hear your own voice clearly, peacefully, and without apology. Oh, welcome. You are not alone here. You are still becoming. There's a quiet myth that floats around once a woman reaches her 60s. It sounds something like this. You've already lived the best parts of your life. Maybe no one says it out loud, but it lingers in the way people stop asking about your dreams, in the way culture celebrates youth and forgets the power of time. But I want you to hear something very clearly. You are not done, not becoming, not learning, not growing, not dreaming. In fact, you might just be on the edge of the most meaningful becoming of your life. The truth is, when you spend decades being what others needed, a daughter, a partner, a mother, a caregiver, a professional, it's easy to lose touch with the version of you that existed before the expectations. And sometimes it's not until the noise settles, until the calendar clears, until the kids are grown and the job ends, that you finally meet yourself again. Let me tell you about Marjorie. Marjorie is 67 years old. She spent 35 years as a public school teacher in Ohio, raised 3 children, and buried a husband too early. She was beloved in her community. Everyone knew Mrs. Clark. She hosted Thanksgiving every year, even when she was exhausted, and she always had a pot of coffee ready for a neighbor who needed to talk. But when she retired and the house stayed quiet for days at a time, something unexpected happened. She started to feel invisible, like she had stepped out of the room and no one noticed. She told me one day, "I'm not sure I've ever really known who I am apart from who I've been for everyone else. Now that I'm just Marjorie again, I'm realizing I don't know her very well." And I told her, that's not something to fear. That's a sacred invitation. See, we spend the first half of life becoming who we're expected to be. But the second half, that's when we get to become who we truly are. Marjorie started small. She began waking up early, not to cook breakfast for anyone else, but just to sit in the morning light with her coffee, quietly. No television, no phone, just silence, and she started writing down one thought a day. Not a to-do list, not a memory, just a single truth that felt like hers. One day she wrote, "I like being alone more than I thought." Another day, I don't miss the meetings. I miss laughing. Then, I don't think I ever allowed myself to take up space just for me. In just a few months, she began to glow differently, not because she had found all the answers, but because she had finally stopped asking for permission to ask the questions. She was no longer rushing to fill her time. She was learning to sit with herself and feel at home. That is what this chapter of life is about. You're not less needed. You're not past your purpose. You're not fading into the background. You're becoming still again. But now it's for you. It might not feel comfortable at first. You might feel unsure, even lonely. That's okay. Becoming is not neat and tidy. It's tender. It's learning how to live without performance, to choose what feels true, not what looks impressive. It's saying, I don't want to do that anymore, and not explaining why. And maybe for the first time, you have the time and space to listen to your own voice without being pulled in 1,000 directions. That voice has waited patiently for decades. She deserves your attention now. So here's something you can try this week. Each morning, look at yourself in the mirror and ask, what do I want to feel today? Not what you have to do, not what someone else needs, just how you want to feel. Maybe it's peace, maybe it's energy, maybe it's tenderness or strength, or just a deep breath that doesn't lead to the next task. Then ask, what would help me feel that even just for 5 minutes? And give it to yourself without guilt. You don't have to do it perfectly. You just have to show up. Because the woman you're becoming has been waiting for you all along. In the comments, I'd love to hear, what are you beginning to discover about yourself now in this season of your life? What's one thing you're learning to embrace that you might have ignored or silenced before? 2, writing to come home to yourself. There's something sacred about putting pen to paper, not typing, not texting, just writing slowly with your own hand, your own rhythm, your own breath behind the words. It's a quiet practice, but it holds incredible cheer, especially now in this chapter of life when the outside world gets a little quieter and the inner world becomes much louder. Because here's the truth. We carry a lifetime of stories inside us. Some we've told many times, some we've hidden, some we haven't even named yet. And writing is how we begin to make sense of it all. Let me tell you about Evelyn. Evelyn is 72. She lives in Northern California in a small house filled with books and soft light. Her husband passed away 3 years ago, and for a while she told me the days just blurred together. She had no schedule, no one expecting anything. The silence was heavy. Then one day, her granddaughter gave her a small journal. It wasn't fancy, just a floral cover and a soft blue ribbon. Evelyn didn't know what to do with it at first, but one morning, with her coffee still warm in her hand, she opened it and wrote, "Today I miss his laugh." That was it. One sentence, but it opened a door. The next day she wrote, "The sun came through the window. It felt like him." And after that, "I'm not sure who I am without someone to take care of, but maybe I can take care of myself now." She didn't write long essays or big stories, just a few quiet thoughts each morning, a way to catch her breath, a place to be honest, a way to come home to herself. And that's what journaling really is. It's not about writing the perfect thing. It's not about being a writer. It's about creating a space where you don't have to perform. You don't have to pretend. You just show up as you are. So many women tell me, "I don't know what to write." But that's the point. You don't have to know. You just start. Try this tomorrow morning. Open a notebook, any notebook and write these 3 things. One thing you're grateful for, one thing you're letting go of, and one small thing you're looking forward to. That's it. You can do it in 5 minutes. You can write in the margins of a newspaper, on a grocery list, on the back of a receipt. The paper doesn't matter. The honesty does. And you might be surprised at what begins to come out. Maybe a memory from childhood you haven't thought of in decades. Maybe a truth you were afraid to say out loud. Maybe a dream you didn't know you still had. This practice isn't about dwelling in the past. It's about honoring what you've lived through, what you're still carrying, and what you're ready to release. Journaling helps your thoughts settle. Instead of circling around in your head all day, they have a place to land. And once they land, you begin to see patterns. You begin to find peace in the small things. And you begin to feel like you know yourself again. That's a gift. You don't need a therapist to start understanding yourself. You don't need a timeline to figure out what comes next. You just need a few quiet minutes and a willingness to listen to what's been waiting inside you all along. And maybe in those pages, you'll meet the woman you're becoming. The one who's not trying to impress anyone. The one who has nothing to prove. The one who is finally quietly becoming whole. Have you tried journaling before? If so, what has it helped you discover about yourself? And if not, what would you write if no one else was ever going to read it but you? 3. Letting go is not giving up. Letting go. Those 2 words carry so much weight, don't they? They sound like endings, like something being taken from you, like loss. And for many women, especially those who've spent decades building, nurturing, and holding families together, the idea of letting go feels unnatural, even painful. But what if letting go isn't a loss at all? What if it's actually the doorway to peace? You see, we spend so much of our lives carrying things we didn't even realize we picked up. Expectations, roles, guilt, regret, responsibility, old routines, old versions of ourselves. We carry it all because that's what we were taught good women do. We hold on, we push through, we endure. But at some point, endurance turns into exhaustion, and the soul begins to whisper something gentle. You don't have to carry all of this anymore. Let me tell you about Sandra. Sandra is 69. She raised 4 children, worked part-time as a nurse, and cared for her aging parents, all in the same season. Her days were full. Her plate was always overflowing. Even after the kids moved out, she kept everything, not just the photo albums and dishes, but the habits of constant doing, constant worrying, constant responsibility. One day she told me, "My closets were packed, but honestly, so was my heart." Then came a shift. It wasn't dramatic, no big life event, just one quiet afternoon standing in her garage, surrounded by boxes of things she no longer used. She looked around and said to herself, "Why am I still holding on to all of this?" That moment started a process, not just of decluttering her home, but of gently releasing years of emotional weight. She gave away objects she had once felt guilty parting with. She let go of trying to fix everyone's problems. She stopped apologizing for needing rest. She told me, "As the stuff left my house, it felt like my shoulders were lowering too. I could breathe again." That's what letting go does. It creates space, not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually. It says, I'm no longer trying to be who I was 20 years ago. I'm learning to love who I am now. And that's the shift I want to invite you into today. Letting go doesn't mean you're giving up. It means you're growing wise enough to know what's worth keeping and what's not. So here's a practice you can try. Take a piece of paper and draw 2 columns. On the left, write things I'm still holding on to, and on the right, things I'm ready to release. Don't overthink it. Just let it flow. You might write things like, I'm still holding the guilt of not being a perfect mom. I'm still holding the need to always say yes. Or I'm still holding resentment from that old friendship. And maybe on the right, I'm ready to release the idea that I always have to be strong. I'm ready to let go of what no longer brings peace. Or I'm ready to stop chasing approval that never really fed me. This exercise isn't magic, but it is revealing. Sometimes just naming what we carry makes it easier to set it down. Because the truth is, you are not defined by what you keep. You are shaped by what you choose. And choosing peace is a powerful thing. You've earned the right to lighten your load. You've earned the right to say, that mattered this, but it doesn't serve me now. You've earned the right to rest. Letting go is not weakness, it's clarity. It's a soft kind of strength, the kind that doesn't need to prove anything anymore. And when you create space within yourself, you invite something new to enter. Peace, creativity, presence, and maybe even joy. The kind of joy that isn't loud, but steady. The kind that lingers, the kind that says, this is enough. What's one belief, role, or expectation you've carried for years and are now ready to release? Share it in the comments. You never know who might feel seen because of your courage to let it go. 4. Facing mortality with grace, not fear. There's a quiet truth we all carry, though we don't speak it often. This life is not forever. While most of us know that in the theory, it's not until we reach a certain age that the truth begins to settle in, not just in our minds, but in our bones. We start to feel it in the slower mornings, the smaller holidays, the moments when someone we love is no longer there. And yet, what if this truth wasn't something to fear? What if remembering that our time is limited could help us live with more clarity, more tenderness, more meaning? The Stoics had a phrase for this. Memento mori. It means remember you will die. At first it can sound harsh, even a little morbid, but when you sit with it, something softer begins to emerge. Not dread, but permission. Not fear, but focus. Let me tell you about Robert and Carol. Robert is 76. His wife, Carol, was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's 5 years ago. Since then, Robert has become her caregiver. He helps her dress, makes her favorite tea, even though she often forgets she asked for it. He still reads her the poems they used to love when they were young. One morning over coffee, I asked him how he gets through the long days. He looked at me quietly for a moment and said, I used to live in fear of the day she wouldn't remember me. And yes, some days are harder than others, but now I focus on the moment we're in, not the one that's fading. That's what love looks like now. His words stayed with me because that is what acceptance can be. Not giving up, not growing cold, but learning to stay close to what matters even as it changes. Mortality isn't just about death. It's about perspective. When we stop running from the end, we start seeing what's still in front of us. We stop rushing. We stop numbing. We begin to notice the quiet joy of a phone call with our children, the warmth of a blanket, the feeling of sun on our face. We forgive faster. We hold hands longer. We speak more kindly. Not because we're perfect, but because we know our time is precious. And that changes everything. Strange, isn't it? How the thought of the end can make the middle feel so much richer. It makes each cup of tea feel like a small ceremony. Each sunset feel like a painting. Each I love you feel like a gift, not a habit. You don't have to fear this truth. You don't have to hide from it. In fact, the more we allow ourselves to accept that life is not endless, the more we begin to truly live. So here's a gentle practice. Each morning, take 1 quiet minute before you start your day. Sit in stillness. Place your hand on your heart and ask yourself, if today were my last day, how would I live it? Would you be softer with yourself? Would you forgive someone? Would you call that friend back? Would you spend more time being than doing? This is not about being morbid. It's about being awake. Because when you live like time is a gift, you stop wasting it on things that never mattered. You start spending it on what fills your soul. Relationships, kindness, creativity, and peace. And here's something I believe with all my heart. Just because you are closer to the end does not mean your light is fading. In fact, many women shine brighter in these years because they've stopped pretending, they've stopped performing, they've started being truly, beautifully being. And that light? It's soft, yes, but it is powerful. It teaches the younger ones that aging is not a decline. It is a deepening. It is not an ending. It is a return. And you still have something to give. You still have love to offer. You still have moments ahead that will take your breath away. And perhaps most importantly, you have the gift of presence, the ability to fully show up for your own life. When you think about the time you have left, what do you want it to be filled with? What matters most to you now? Not 10 years ago, not what others expect, but now in your heart? Share in the comments. Someone may need your words today. 5. Tranquility is the new strength. We live in a world that praises noise, speed, and achievement. We're taught that being busy means being important and that slowing down is a kind of weakness, or worse, irrelevance. But let me ask you something. What if the opposite is true? What if stillness is actually strength? What if peace, not productivity, is the real sign of a life well lived? After decades of giving, rushing, sacrificing, and proving, many women find themselves wondering if it's finally okay to rest. The answer is yes. Not only is it okay, it is necessary, and it is powerful. Let me tell you about Teresa. Teresa is 73. Her life used to be full from sunrise to bedtime, raising kids, organizing church events, delivering meals to neighbors, taking care of everyone but herself. After a minor health scare last year, she said something shifted inside her. She told me, I realized I've never just been. I've always done, fixed, managed. But I'm tired of living like my worth depends on my to-do list. So she started saying no. Not because she stopped loving people, but because she finally started loving herself too. She created a peaceful morning ritual, nothing grand, just a chair by the window, her favorite blanket, and a cup of tea. She turned her phone off. She didn't check the news. She just sat quietly, watching the light change. And after a few weeks, she told me something I'll never forget. I didn't know I was allowed to live like this. There's something profound in that sentence because so many women, especially those who have spent years carrying families, jobs, and burdens, never received permission to rest, to be still, to enjoy their own presence. But here's the truth. You do not need to earn your peace. You do not need to explain your stillness. You do not need to apologize for wanting quiet, slowness, space. You have done enough. And now tranquility is your birthright. The Stoics called it adoraxia, a state of calm undisturbed by chaos. Not because the world becomes quiet, but because you become grounded. And that kind of peace is not soft. It's strong. It's the kind of strength that doesn't shout, but holds steady. It's not the strength of pushing through. It's the strength of knowing when to pause, when to breathe, when to walk away from things that no longer serve your soul. And it's available to you right now, not in some far-off version of your life, but today, exactly as you are. So how do you invite this peace in? Start small. Try beginning your day in silence, just 5 minutes without screens, headlines, or tasks. Let your mind wake up gently. Let your body arrive fully. Try doing one thing at a time, whether it's making your coffee, folding laundry, or walking outside. Do it slowly, with intention. Let it be enough. Create one peaceful corner in your home, a place that's just for you. A chair by a window, a candle, a journal, a soft pillow. Whatever makes you feel safe, warm, and whole. Perhaps most importantly, let go of the belief that you have to be available to everyone all the time. You're allowed to set boundaries. You're allowed to choose rest. You're allowed to turn inward. Because peace is not passive. It is a practice, a decision. And every time you choose it, you choose to honor your life in a new way. When you live with peace at the center, everything begins to shift. You become more patient, more observant, more attuned to the beauty around you. The smell of your favorite meal, the sound of rain, the joy of your grandchild's laughter. And your peace becomes a gift, not just to you, but to everyone around you. In a noisy world, you become a steady presence, a gentle reminder, a lighthouse. You don't have to keep rushing. You don't have to keep performing. You've done your share. Now is your time to be, to savor, to simply live fully, quietly, intentionally. What's one small habit that helps you feel more peaceful these days? Is there a corner in your home, a time in your routine, or a ritual that helps you slow down and return to yourself? Share it in the comments. Someone may be looking for that exact kind of inspiration, a new way to live. So here we are at the end of this quiet conversation. We've talked about many things today. Things that aren't often said out loud, things that sit quietly in the hearts of women as they grow older. We talked about what it means to rediscover yourself after 60, not as someone fading, but as someone finally becoming. We talked about writing, not for anyone else, but for the simple purpose of hearing your own voice again. We talked about letting go of clutter, roles and expectations, and how that's not giving up, but growing wise. We talked about mortality, not as a dark shadow, but as a soft truth that helps us live more fully, more freely, more lovingly. And we talked about peace, real, steady, ordinary peace, as the new strength that carries us home to ourselves. You see, aging isn't just about years passing. It's about what deepens in you, your perspective, your grace, your courage to live differently. It's about finally being able to say, this is what I want, this is who I am, and this is enough. That kind of clarity doesn't come from the outside. It doesn't come from a title or a schedule or a list of things you've accomplished. It comes from stillness, from choosing to be with yourself, not as a project, but as a presence. And maybe for the first time in your life, you don't need to rush. You don't need to hustle. You don't need to prove anything. You can simply live slowly, honestly, meaningfully. If no one has told you this lately, let me be the one to say it. You are not too old. You are not too late. You are not finished. You are still deeply, beautifully alive. There are still stories left to tell, still songs to hum, still hands to hold, still sunsets to watch, still quiet mornings that will surprise you with their beauty. And perhaps most of all, there is still time to fall in love with your own life. Not the one you used to have, not the one others expect, but the one you're creating now, day by day, choice by choice. A life of presence, a life of peace, a life that fits your soul, not just your schedule. So as we close, I want to leave you with this simple invitation. Each day, choose one small thing that brings you back to yourself. A breath before speaking, a slow cup of coffee, a 5-minute journal entry, a walk without a destination, a kind thought about your own heart. These aren't little things, they are the whole thing. Because when a woman learns to live from her center, when she makes peace her compass and gentleness her guide, she becomes unshakable. Not in the loud, public way the world tends to admire, but in the quiet, rooted way that truly matters. And that woman, she's you. Just as you are you with your history, you with your grace, you stepping into this chapter not as a closing, but as a return to what is real, what is lasting, and what is beautifully yours.